What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of Washed Up Wednesdays, episode 15. As always, I'm your host, Jordan Lauby. Every week we're here at 6:30 talking about anything in the NFL regarding trades, game results, injuries, who's been the best player, who's been the worst player, you name it. If you're new to the show, that's what we're going to cover. Side note, I'm back on the island for this weekend. Next weekend, I'll be up in New Hampshire for training. So 2 different locations for the next 2 weeks. Hopefully you get used to it. But let's get right down to it because there's a lot that happened this week in the NFL. First to note, the refs have been garbage this year, and this week was no exception. We got to talk about them. Surprise, surprise. Roquan Smith had a bad late hit out of bounds call. He got stepped on by the guy who tackled him, and he kind of fell with him. The refs thought he shoved him out of bounds because the way his arms went up. There's another player that had a similar situation happen. I believe it was in the Seahawks game. It might have been Eric Hendricks was bringing the guy out of bounds, and as he was twisting his body, he let go. But because of the way he let go, it looked like he was throwing him, and it's the way he fell out of bounds. They thought it was just a late hit, and he was being over-aggressive with how he hit the guy, which it's a judgment call, but I can see it at full speed. There's no way he was twisting his arms the whole way around to make a big, egregious hit. So 2 bad unnecessary roughness calls there. There's another unnecessary roughness / roughing the passer call on Bud Dupree when he hit Baker Mayfield at the end of the Steelers-Browns game. I thought that was pretty bad. He did hit him high, but no part of his helmet hits Baker's. He doesn't hit Baker's helmet. He comes over the shoulder like a coach to swat the ball out, and they called him on that. I thought that was awful. And then Trey Flowers had a clear pass interference on his interception, I thought, against the Vikings on Monday night. Stephon Diggs was catching the ball, and right before he catches it, Trey Flowers wraps his arm around his waist and then hits his right arm down slightly. So Stephon Diggs goes from making the catch here to here, ends up dropping the ball, and it pops right back into Trey Flowers' hands. He's been having a much better season in the second half, Trey Flowers, but I thought that was absolutely pass interference. Should have been called, led to a pick, which led to a Seahawks score, which led to them winning by 7. Not saying that was the only reason the Vikings lost and the Seahawks won. We'll get into that a little bit later, but again, it could be a reason. That's a big game-changing play right there, especially when Seattle was down for most of the first half, and then that's a big play to start part of your second half given there. So, as always, refs have been terrible. Those I thought were some of the worst calls that were made all year, and they all happened in the same week. The only game I thought was ref right was the Jets and Bengals game. There were a lot of good penalties there. We'll talk a little bit more about the Jets and Bengals game later, but I do want to point that out, that I thought that game was actually refed very well and was one of the shiny points this season. I want to talk about the Chargers for a little bit because I thought they were going to go in and crush the Broncos, especially with Derwin James back in the secondary. It's a make-or-break game. They have a shot to win the AFC West because at that point they were only back 2 games. So I was like, hey, if they win this week and the Raiders, they're going to be tied with they're going to be game back with the Raiders, they have a legit shot to turn around their season, especially with getting some key players back. But they ended up losing that game as well. But since week 5, since Melvin Gordon came back for a game, he came back a week and a half before to practice. But when that was the first game he played in, they've been 2-6, and they've lost every game by touchdown or less. I'm not saying that's Melvin Gordon's fault, but that has made the backfield a lot more loaded, and I don't think that the Chargers are efficiently distributing the ball between Eckler and Gordon. I'm not sure why that's happening, but it's just not cohesive to how that backfield is going to work. It worked last year with Gordon, was obviously the main bell cow, but then you bring in Eckler on third down, throw it to him if you need to. I think with how Eckler shined this year early on and how Melvin Gordon has responded to that by not playing so great, I think it's made a lot of confusion on who you want your lead back to be. Sometimes they put Eckler in situations that he won't succeed in. Sometimes they put Gordon in situations he won't succeed in, making Eckler the lead back and making Gordon the third down back. That's not how that backfield's going to work with both of them back there. If they were separately on their own on 2 different teams and they were the only star running backs, I think that would work. But again, I'm not an NFL coach, so clearly I don't know what I'm talking about. But the tape's there. You're losing by a touchdown or less. You distribute that ball a little bit differently and go to different guys in different situations, maybe you win those games at the end. Maybe when you're on the 2-yard line against the Chiefs and you need a touchdown, maybe give it to Melvin Gordon, who you know can run through 1 or 2 defenders on any given play. Don't throw it on a fade route to your running back with a very fast safety on him. Daniel Sorensen is not the best safety, but in red zone, he is especially good. According to PFF this year, he has a 78 grade in the end zone. That doesn't sound great, but the average player has a 55 grade overall on defense this year. So he's 22, 23 points up on the rest of the defenders, and that's a specialty area in the red zone. That's most of the time when he's playing is in those red zone situations. So he's gotten better as his career went on. He's definitely gotten a lot more playing time, and I think they found a specialty in the red zone. And we saw that a couple weeks ago. He made a big play against the Chargers and gave him the win down in Mexico City. And that's translating now to other teams. They're like, hey, we just need to put a safety on Gordon and Eckler when they're in the game in those red zone situations. Rivers didn't throw to them. He didn't have anyone open. Ends up getting sacked a couple of times when they got into the red zone. Ended up not working out. And the Chargers are right there. They could be undefeated. They could be 12-0, but a couple plays need to go their way, and they need to make some more sound play calling. I think Anthony Lynn needs to stay as head coach, because I think he's awesome as a head coach. He's proven it last year when he's had multiple injuries. He's proven it this year to stay in games, even with all the injuries he's had on offense and defense. Lost both of his starting safeties at the beginning of the year and is finally now getting them back and has still been able to stay in games by a touchdown or less. So, we'll see what happens with the Chargers going forward. I definitely don't think they're making playoffs this year. They have a very small percentage of making it, but hopefully they will. Shout out to the Cardinals, officially eliminated. Great job, Cliff Kingsbury. Couple of other big news kind of things. Ron Rivera gets fired. I thought the organization did a great job with this, actually. Heard this on the Pat McAfee show, and actually Ron Rivera said it in the interview on Good Morning Football today. He said the organization was very upfront with him. I don't know if it was the GM or the owner that went to him, but they basically said that they didn't want to drag him along into the offseason with, Rivera's on the hot seat. Panthers, again, missing playoffs. Ooh, they have injuries. Who's your starting quarterback going to be going into next year? Do you keep Cam? Do you get rid of him? They said, we're not going to put you through any of that. We're going to send you away. We want to get someone in-house learning how to be a head coach, be effective. We're trying to be a new era of the Panthers. And with that being said, that probably means Cam Newton's going away, and he's probably going to go to another team and succeed there, because I think he can be a successful quarterback in a different system. But with that being said, you get a new quarterback, whether that's Kyle Allen or you draft one or you pick one up in free agency. Gardner Minshew, per se, who knows if he's going to get traded. I don't think he's a free agent this year. I think he's on a 2-year contract. But go after a quarterback, maybe stick with Kyle Allen because he's been solid besides maybe 3 games this year. You revamp that offense. That defense goes from a 4-3 to a 3-4, so maybe get a coach that's more in aptitude in that defensive scheme, and just see where it goes from there. But shout out to the Panthers organization, just totally upfront with him. Ron Rivera will be a head coach next year somewhere else. I can almost guarantee that. Maybe he goes to the Giants. Maybe he's the Redskins' new head coach and start to turn that franchise around with Dwayne Haskins and Darius Geis and Scary Terry over there. So, and he's defensive-minded. Redskins have all the pieces to be a very good defense. They've had a couple of injuries come up. Ryan Kerrigan actually missed the first game of his career this week, which was very surprising to see that. But, it'll be very cool to see where he goes. I think he can succeed in any given organization. He's brought that edge before, and he's brought that change about. So let's see what he does. Eli Manning is getting the start on Monday night. Daniel Jones is in a boot, and Shermer said he's most likely going to start Monday night against the Eagles. Who knows? Maybe Eli has a little resurgence, goes into Philly and beats the Eagles. We'll see what happens. I think the Eagles might be away, actually. I have to double-check that. We'll see that later in the show. But who knows? Eli Manning, maybe he throws it up, sees Darius Slayton's playing better. Oh, now I have a good receiver. Sterling Shepard's back from injury. Now I have weapons. Saquon Barkley is healthy. Even though he hasn't been playing great, maybe this changes your game plan a little bit. I doubt it does, but it could fit more to Manning's playing style than Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones, obviously a lot more mobile. You can do more with him as far as a run game and option game is concerned. With Manning, you have to be a little more pocket wary with how you call your offense, but that could bode well for the Giants going against the Eagles, which the secondary has played great against really good teams and awful against bad teams. We'll get into them in a second. But the last point I want to bring up is that Chase McLaughlin, the former 49ers kicker earlier this year, just got picked up by the Colts. A lot of people are saying, oh, Vinny's gone. Vinny's, he hasn't done great this year. This is the worst season of his career. He's got a bummed out leg. He's probably overkicked, probably trying too many reps in practice, maybe hurt it in the game against the Titans. I don't think this means anything about Vinny's job. I think it's just security and insurance and maybe bringing in a new kicker for the future, assuming that Vinny's going to retire, especially with the season he's had. I just think the Colts field goal unit as a whole needs help. I think Luke Rhodes and Ricky are fine as the snapper and holder, but I think they have a lot of holes in the offensive line in regards to blocking. They've had the most blocks kicked in the league this year. I think they're up to 3 or 4 in that category. Every other team only has 1 kick blocked, so they need to fix those areas, and that changes the game. If they make all 3 of those field goals, even with the one he missed, they're down by 8 points on that last drive with Jacoby Brissett. So you gotta give and take a little bit there. You gotta make something happen, Colts. So good job by them. But 4 weeks left in the season. Playoff picture is really settling up. A lot of guys have moved up to the 1st seed. Guys who were the 1st or 2nd seed are now down to the 5th and 6th. Very interesting movement so far. Let's get right into the power rankings. I'll just go in groups of 8. 32, the Bengals finally got their first win, but still worst team in the NFL by far. 31, I got the Redskins there. Right ahead of them are the Giants. That's going to be a cool division rivalry game. Even though the Redskins have more wins, I still think the Giants are a better team. And Dwayne Haskins has done nothing to prove that he's the quarterback of the future. He hasn't had good games. He's gotten the ball out nicely, but he's made some really bad throws and rookie mistakes. So that puts the Giants ahead of the Redskins for me. Falcons are figuring out their pieces, but still not there. Dolphins with a big win move up to 28 on my list. Looks like they're getting it together. Doug Peterson actually said they are a good football team. So Doug Flores is figuring out, or Brian Flores is figuring it out over there, doing a really good job making that defense work. They just signed Eric Rowe to an extension. Who knows, maybe he's going to be a big centerpiece of that defense for years to come. 27 and 26, it's kind of a tie between the Cardinals and Lions. Both have been bad, but given the Lions have had a lot more injuries than the Cardinals, I'll give it to the Lions, give them the benefit of the doubt, put them at 26. Number 25, even though they've been in close games, I got to give it to the Chargers. Have not been good. And 24 are the Broncos. They're ahead of the Chargers because they beat them. That's the low-tier league. This mid-low tier from 23 to 16, something like that. I got the Jets there. Right beneath the Eagles. Eagles would have been higher, but that big loss against the Dolphins and all the injuries they've had does not bode them well. Carson Wentz has been pretty shaky besides last week, playing against a bad defense, mind you. So we'll see what happens with the Eagles. Maybe they move up. Maybe they end up making the playoffs because they still can, which is unbelievable. Sitting at 5-7, you can still outright win your division. That'll be interesting to see. Right above them is the Jags. I think with Gardner Minshew coming back in, there's a lot of hope for the rest of the season. That gives them the edge over the Eagles for me. Then I got the Panthers. Christian McCaffrey still looking like a solid MVP candidate, even though his production has gone down. And Lamar Jackson is absolutely balled out. I still think Russell Wilson is the MVP. Don't quote me on that. Browns at 19, very disappointing season. We got the Bears at 18, the Bucks at 17, and the Colts at 16. Even though the Colts have struggled as of late, I still put them in the mid-tier and the direct middle of the season because they're winning games that are tough. They're winning the tough games, but they're losing the games that they have to win. So that doesn't put them any higher, but still doesn't put them any lower because they're still competing in the AFC South. Number 15, we got the Cowboys, probably the most disappointing team this year next to the Browns. Then I got the Raiders, who have surprised a lot of people. They're playing very well. The Steelers have been playing amazingly without their Hall of Fame quarterback and a lot of injuries offensively and defensively. They figured it out. Anyone who said Mike Tomlin should get fired and is a bad coach, I'm pretty sure I said this episode 4 or 5. You don't get rid of Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin will figure it out, and he has figured it out. Has them sitting at 7-5, and they hold on to the 6th seed in the AFC. I got the Titans above them because I think they can steal it from them, especially with how Ryan Tannehill is playing. He's 5-1 since becoming the starter, and they've beaten some really good teams in the process, one being the Chiefs, the other being the Colts. Number 11, I got the Rams. Rams have been improving their play, but they are still shaky. I think when Goff plays good defense, he crumbles under pressure. He's got to figure it out if they want to move up and hopefully have a playoff shot. Cracking into the top 10, I got the Bills. Their defense is absolutely unreal, and I think Josh Allen has been playing great as well. He's very underrated. And Devin Singletary is just making that offense flow very nicely. So let's look for the Bills to keep succeeding. Number 9, I got the Chiefs. I think if these two went ahead, I think the Chiefs would destroy them outright, even with how good the Bills offense is playing. I think it'd be a big fire match and a big shootout, but I would give it to the Chiefs. Upper hand there. Number 8, I got the Vikings. The only reason they're this low is because of the loss against the Seahawks. I got the Texans moving up to 7 because of the big win against the Pats. Number 6, I do have the Packers here this low only because they lost to the Eagles and they had a bad loss earlier this year. Team slipping off my mind, but I don't think that they should be in the top 5. But anyways, here is the top 5. I got the Saints here. Saints have been playing very well, especially with Drew Brees back. Then I have the Pats at 4. They used to be my number 1. Now they slide all the way back to number 4. Really not working out with Brady. They need to find some weapons, but this defense is the only reason they are this high. Then I got the 49ers at 3. A lot of people have the 49ers at 2. I have them at 3 because the Seahawks did beat them, which leads me to my number 2. It is the Seahawks. They've been figuring it out with a lot of missing pieces, and they've done an excellent job with their run game, one of the best running offenses in the NFL. But the clear-cut number 1, in my opinion, they have the best offense. They have one of the best defenses. They have the best game plan. They know how to use their players. They know how to substitute. They know how to do everything under the sun. And even their special teams kicks ass. It's the Ravens. They're the outright number 1 team. I want to say the Pats would beat them when they meet in the championship round. But even when you run 6 or 7 DBs against this guy, they're just going to pound it up with Mark Ingram, which was the piece they were missing last year. They didn't have a bruising running back. Yes, they had Gus Edwards last year, but he wasn't anywhere near to what he is this year. But with that being said, the Ravens are going to crush every team for the rest of the season. I see them getting into the Super Bowl. Who they play in the NFC? Could be the Seahawks, could be the 49ers, could be the Saints, could be the Packers. Who knows? It could be any team. But I am saying it right now, the Ravens will be in the Super Bowl. They'll meet the Pats in the championship round, but they'll beat them by 2 touchdowns. Brady will start trying to make a fourth quarter comeback. The offensive line will go awry. They'll get stopped 4th down on the Ravens' 30-yard line. Quote me on it. Come back to episode 15 when you see that happen on the screen and be like, wow, Jordan was right. Maybe I should have gambled on this game. We'll see what happens there. But that is my third quarter power rankings for the NFL this year. I'll come out with my power rankings at the end of the season, right before the wild card rounds. This, again, just one of the craziest NFL seasons we've had in a long, long time. Backup quarterbacks playing extremely well. A lot of guys who we thought were going to shine have been awful. A lot of guys who we thought were going to be awful are shining. Just a crazy season. And there are teams who have been really good in the past who are doing amazing, and teams that are doing bad. Teams that have done bad in the past who are now doing very well. And the Patriots somehow still on top with all the struggles that they have had. Good job by the Pats. But let's get into the game of the week and surprises of the week. Not doing hitters and shitters this week, mostly because I got eliminated in both of my money leagues, but the one money league I did not get eliminated from. But hitters and shitters will skip out for this week. Playoffs is a shady time. I don't want to give out who I would play in the playoffs, per se, if I was in them, if I'm not in them. And mostly I was pretty split down the middle on who was right and who was wrong. So I want to give you guys the benefit of the doubt. Don't trust me for fantasy for playoffs, especially with how I did this year. Big reflection on me there. But let's stick to what I do know. Going through the predictions for Peakers and Leakers game of the week, surprise of the week, and who I think is going to win throughout the season. Let's stick with that. So game of the week, honorable mention. Actually, let's just start with number 1 game of the week. I got the Ravens beating the 49ers. That's a Super Bowl preview if I've ever seen one. That was unbelievable. Great defensive battle. It was 14-14 within the first 17 minutes. My buddy John texted our fantasy group and said, hey, this is going to be a big offensive blowout for both teams. No, there were 9 points scored the rest of that game. It was unbelievable how both defense were able to step up, shut down the other team's offense after both started off very hot. Just a great game all around. I thought Lamar played really well given the weather and the circumstances. I think if the weather is better, those a lot bigger plays happen. Mark Andrews, absolute beast in the run game and in the pass game, doing a very good job. Nick Bosa shutting everything down that he could, continuing his incredible rookie season. But Ravens obviously get the upper hand in this one because they have the GOAT, one of the GOATs, the kicker. Vinny is the GOAT, but right now Justin Tucker is the best current player at the kicker position. Great job by the Ravens in that win. Honorable mention number 1, I got the Seahawks beating the Vikings. That was a great game to watch. Vikings had the upper hand early. They were up 17-10 going into half, but then the Seahawks go on to score. They end up going up 34-17. Vikings had a late surge, ended up losing at the end of it. I believe it was on an interception or it was a fourth down stop, but either way, Anthony Harris making big plays. He made a big heads-up play again on Russell Wilson. It was a tip ball, so Russell Wilson, as he's coach, swatted the ball, swatted a little too early, gets popped up. Harris pick six the other way. Great job, Anthony Harris. I think he's one of the best young safeties in the league. Look for him, especially when Harrison Smith starts to play a little bit worse. He's going to step up in that Vikings defense. Like I said earlier, Kirk Cousins threw an interception, which I don't think should have been an interception, should have been a pass interference. But either way, he did throw a pick, and Cook fumbled and then was out the rest of the game. That's a huge game changer, losing one of the best running backs in the league. Alexander Madison did a great job filling in, but definitely not the same player that Dalvin Cook is. So those were two tough that was a tough injury there and two tough plays to kind of get over. And then Chris Carson letting Rashad Penny score the goal line touchdown. You see him wave, and then in the post-game interview, he said, yeah, you took yourself out. What was that about? Were you tired? He's like, no, I just wanted to give Rashad the touchdown. You know, I've been getting a lot of goal line touchdowns. I have 8 of them this year. Wanted to give it to the other guy. And Rashad Penny, since coming back from injury, has been an awesome addition to an already on-fire Seahawks offense. So shout out to Chris Carson there, being a smart player there, even though he does lead the league in fumbles from the running back position. But either way, great job by the Seahawks. That was an awesome game to watch. Yes, Kirk Cousins is he is 0-8 in Monday Night Football games, but a lot of that is not his fault. That was one of the best games he played. There were 7 total drops by Vikings receivers. Some of those catches end up being touchdowns if the guys catch them, and that game's a lot different if they do. So Kirk Cousins, this has been the best year of his career. Statistically and on tape, he looks very poised in the pocket. Even with an offensive line that's not playing that great, he's still figuring it out. He's still doing everything he can to have a strong offense and have strong production, even though he's missing Adam Thielen. He's done a great job spreading the ball out to Kyle Rudolph, Irv Smith, Stephon Diggs. Laquan Treadwell caught a touchdown, the former first-round pick back from 2015. So good job overall by the Vikings. Better job by the Seahawks to win that game. Last game of the week, I got the Broncos beating the Chargers. Rivers did have a decent game, but Drew Lock had a better game. He threw a lot of dime passes, threw a great ball to Courtland Sutton, who made an awesome catch in the end zone. He was about to be a peaker, but I think that Devontae Parker had a better game given the circumstances of the Dolphins, so that put Devontae Parker over him on the list. But Courtland Sutton has been playing very well this year, very underrated receiver in my opinion. There was a very close pass interference call at the end against Casey Hayward that gave Broncos field goal range, and they made it with Brandon McManus, again, one of the best kickers in the league. But with that being said, I don't know what I would have called there. It's a close call because he does look at him, and as he turns away, he starts to run towards him. He does bump him. It is a close call. Props to the refs for making the call anyways and not just letting it blow dead and have a huge rally happen and whatnot. So I guess I would say right now that's the right call. It's a bang play. It's very close. So it could have gone either way. Big judgment call there. But overall, Broncos showing that they could be a team. And Alexander Johnson he's very underrated at linebacker. He's completely changed how that Broncos defense plays. I was rewatching a couple of old episodes just to check in on old peakers and leakers, and I talked about the Broncos defense being bad. Since he's been thrusted into the starting lineup, that whole defense has changed with their velocity, even with Bradley Chubb out and Von Miller out this past game. So good job there. Let's get into surprises of the week. Bengals getting their first win. Very surprising, beating the Jets. Penalties absolutely killed the Jets. They had 5 holding penalties the whole entire game. They had 12 total. Absolutely wrecked them. Andy Dalton wins his first game back at the quarterback spot. Great job there. And Tyler Boyd finally getting good playing time. AJ Green is going to be out again this week. Probably should have just put him on IR at the beginning of the season, freed up a roster spot. Honorable mention, surprise of the week, the Texans beating the Pats. Deshaun Watson had an absolutely on-fire game. Bradley Roby played his best game of the year. Did a very good job shutting Brady down, read passes very well, even got a sack. Brady was shut down all day. They double-teamed Edelman whenever he was split out wide, and then no one else was getting open because they played tight to man-to-man defense. So they just need an X-factor kind of receiver. Antonio Brown is available. Dez Bryant is available. Maybe get a guy who can catch the ball. I don't know, but N'Keal Harry, he's not going to get open over on the outside. Granted, he had that great goal line touchdown catch 2 weeks ago. You need to hit him across the middle on a post or a dig route. Maybe hit him on a slant. Just find him in the middle because that's where he excelled when he was at Arizona State, and that's where he's going to excel in the NFL. Not saying I'm smarter than Bill Belichick and the Patriots wide receiver coach, but put him in situations where he can succeed, especially with Brady, who can put it in the right spot, regardless of how he's played this year, because he has made some solid throws on the season. Last surprise of the week, Dolphins beating the Eagles. Carson Wentz and Ryan Fitzpatrick played a great, but the Eagles couldn't catch the ball, and the Dolphins just made bigger plays. Shout out for the brand, Matt Hack, or Hawk, however you say his name, and Jason Sanders on that trick play to swinging Gates. That was unbelievable to watch, and that definitely gave them an edge later in the game. Let's get into peakers and leakers this week. Kind of need to hurry this up. Peakers, my honorable mention, talked about him earlier, Bradley Roby. He had 4 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, a quarterback hit, and an interception. He had another pick, but it got called back because he grabbed not N'Keal Harry, Jacoby Myers' arm as the ball came in. His grandpa passed away earlier that week, and he said to him, "I'm going to make a play happen for you." And he did, and he was a great standout player on the defense, one of the reasons they won that game. Great job. Someone we've been waiting for a year and a half to come out and play very well, Darius Geis finally getting it going. 10 carries for 129 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had 2 catches for 8 yards, and he ran over Shaq Thompson on a play. Actually, no, he had a nasty stiff arm. He didn't run over him, excuse me. Played very well, and he did block very well in the passing game as well. I thought he was exceptional there. He did let up 1 or 2 pressures, but for a running back, that's pretty solid. Great job there, Darius Geis. Number 2, Carlos Dunlap. Bengals have been bad all year, but he's been balling out, and this week was no exception. 7 tackles, 3 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and a whopping 6 quarterback hits, along with 1 pass deflection, gave them a big win. Their first win of the year. Great job, Carlos Dunlap. Number 1 peaker this week, Devontae Parker. Ooh, he played awesome. 7 catches for 159 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had a great tiptoe catch on the sideline and then was somehow able to turn it upfield and go score a touchdown. Great job, Devontae Parker, really shining in that Dolphins offense, especially now that Fitzpatrick is back in the fold. Getting into the leakers of the week, then we'll get into the game picks. Jonathan Jones is my honorable mention leaker this week. He got burnt deep twice. 1 did get called back, but Kenny Stills caught the other one. Kenny Stills was just absolutely burning him all day long. This is not usually the game he has. Usually he's a very good shutdown man-to-man corner. He's one of the fastest guys in the league, but Kenny Stills was somehow able to beat him out. Not a good look for Jonathan Jones there. Number 3 is George Kittle. Even when he's not catching the ball, he's usually very good in the run game. He was not able to stop Patrick Nwosu and everyone on that defense. Jalen Ferguson made some great plays from the edge. George Kittle just did not have a good run blocking game. He missed some key blocks, and he didn't get the ball nearly as much as he wanted to. So tough game to beat George Kittle. Number 2, Kyler Murray did not do good. He looked lost against a battered Rams defense. He made a lot of errant throws, and this was definitely his worst game of the year. Rams just had a good game plan. When he wanted to roll out of the pocket, they knew to run Clay Matthews and Dante Fowler up the field because he likes to go back into the outside instead of just sprinting to the side like most quarterbacks do in this league. Tough look for Kyler Murray. Number 1 leaker of the week, Everson Griffin. He has been dominant all year. He's made a name for himself after missing most of last season due to health reasons. But he's been doing very well, but did not do well this game. He was pancaked 4 times by backup right tackle George Fant. George Fant, they love using him in the 6 offensive lineman sets as a tight end, sometimes on the line, sometimes off the line. But he ran him over a lot of times, and he ended up getting 0 tackles on the day for Everson Griffen. He did not do anything. He needs to be that X factor kind of player, especially against a Seahawks offensive line that has been shaky this year. Danielle Hunter played great on the other side, but if Danielle Hunter's doing well and they're focused on him, you got to be making plays on the other side as well. So tough day to be Everson Griffen and everyone else on the list. Let's get into the picks of the week, and then we'll wrap up the show. Week 12, I was 11 for 3, one of my best weeks of the year. But last week, week 13, I was not on. I was 6 for 10. A lot of surprises last week. A lot of guys I thought who were going to play well who didn't, most notably the Thanksgiving games. Well, not really. I was 2 for 3 on Thanksgiving, but either way. But that's going to bring me to 114 and 77 and 1 on the year. So not a bad record to have at all going to the last 4 weeks of the season. So hopefully I go 16-0 this week. Let's see how it works out. Thursday Night Football, Mitch Trubisky rebounds and he plays great. Even though he played well against the Lions, that's going to carry over into this week. 2 Thursday Night Football games in a row for the Bears. They go and beat the Cowboys back at Soldier Field. I got the Falcons beating the Ron Rivera-less Panthers. Matt Ryan's going to put the pieces together, especially with Julio Jones back this week. They're going to figure it out. Ravens are going to beat the Bills on the road. That's going to be a very exciting game to watch. 2 great defenses and 2 great offenses going at it. There's a stat that it's the most rushing yards between 2 quarterbacks in the same game going against each other, so I thought that was pretty cool. I got the Browns getting it back together, beating the Bengals. Then I got the Texans beating the Broncos at home. Vikings coming home as well. They're going to beat the Lions there. Packers, this is pretty easy, going to beat the Redskins, no doubt there. I think the Colts are going to beat the Bucs on the road. Not only is this going to be a redemption game for Vinatieri, he's going to hit a game-winning field goal this week, but these are the 2 best long snappers in the league going at it. Luke Rhodes and my boy Zach Trinner. No one makes more tackles than him for the long snapper spot. Be on the lookout for Zach Trinner. He also made another one this week, but Shelby Harris, I think, made the tackle there. So look for him to do something as well with Luke Rhodes. Long snappers are going to definitely be the difference for that game. Then I got the Jets beating the Dolphins. Big redemption game for them at home. Saints are going to beat the 49ers. 49ers will drop 2 in a row. Drew Brees and Michael Thomas are going to absolutely torch Richard Sherman all day long. And I think because they're going to be focused on Taysom Hill in a couple packages, that will open up the running game for Latavius Murray and Alvin Kamara. Chargers beat the Jags on the road. Even with Gardner Minshew back, I think he does throw 2 picks to Derwin James this week. Raiders are going to beat the Titans. That's going to be a very fun game to watch. Pats are going to go in and beat the Chiefs. Even with the Pats' struggles on offense, the Chiefs do not have the defense to accommodate all their weapons. So, especially James White with how he played against the Texans. Let's see him do something against the Chiefs. I got the Steelers beating the Cardinals on the road. Sorry, we're going 3-10-1. Tough deal, Cardinals, or 3-9-1, whatever their record would be. Just bad. Seahawks are going to beat the Rams on the road on Sunday Night Football. That'll be a very fun divisional game to watch. And then I got the Eagles beating the Giants at home, getting a big win for Carson Wentz and the boys, hopefully locking it up in the NFC East, making that a tight competition with the Cowboys. They'll have the same record. And that game the following week with the Cowboys and Eagles is going to determine who wins the NFC East. But that's going to do it, episode 15 here, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, next week I'll be up in New Hampshire. The show still will happen. I'll just have to figure out the setting and everything for that. But please give this a share, give this a like, send this to your friends, recommend it to your friends, get this around. Episode 16 is coming out next week. It's crazy that we're already this far into the season and this far into the show. So thank you guys very much for tuning in. Thank you for all your support throughout all the weeks. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. My name is Jordan Labby. Have a great night, ladies and gentlemen.